Last time, we followed a cavewoman through her periods, but her body was built for something even more dangerous next: pregnancy, childbirth, before medicine, no surgeons, no antibiotics, no anesthesia, one of the most dangerous moments in a prehistoric woman's life. How did any of them survive it? It's night. A woman is in labor. Around her, other women, experienced hands, familiar faces. No hospital, no doctor, no painkillers, just firelight, water, and people. For many women, this was the most dangerous moment of their lives. It has happened in one form or another tens of billions of times. Here's what one woman wrote about her own body. "My pelvis literally will not allow a baby to pass. If this was ancient times, I would probably have died during my first birth." She lives in the age of C-sections and hospitals. She survived. Most women in her ancestral line did not have that option. Neither did ours. So how did ancient women survive childbirth without hospitals, surgery, or modern medicine? Human childbirth is unusually difficult among primates, and the internet answers it with a tidy story, one that's full of myths and half-truths. So tonight, every claim gets a label: documented, plausible, speculative, myth. You'll always know exactly what we know and what we don't. Let's start with the mechanic that changes everything. The one most videos skip. A human baby enters the birth canal facing sideways. Then it rotates 90 degrees. It emerges facing its mother's back. The baby can't see her. She can't reach it. That position can make it harder for her to guide the baby, clear its airway, or deal with a cord complication by herself. Why does this matter? Because it means the difference between a birth she can manage alone and one she can't. A chimp can manage more of that alone. A human often cannot. She needs hands. That single fact explains an entire history. Birth assistance appears across societies throughout the historical and ethnographic record, not just because of culture, because of geometry. A baby that must rotate and emerge backwards benefits from someone to catch it. It's a poetic idea, but the mechanics make it a compelling one. The word midwife comes from Old English, with woman. The role almost certainly reaches far beyond cities and written history, although archaeology cannot identify the first midwife. For thousands of years before hospitals existed, one person stood beside women in labor more often than anyone else. The mechanics of human birth make assistance a compelling and ancient possibility. In many recorded societies, laboring women were surrounded by experienced female relatives or attendants. The number of helpers and their roles varied enormously. There was no single universal system. Some supported her weight. Some prepared warmth and water. Some simply stayed. Across many recorded cultures, the recurring pattern is support rather than complete isolation, and a detail modern history often gets backwards. Upright, kneeling, squatting, and supported positions were common in many societies. Lying flat became far more prominent with the medicalization of childbirth, although women have always used several positions. When you're told the traditional position is lying down, that's the modern story. The older traditions use the earth. Experienced attendants could read a labor, support the mother, and sometimes attempt manual correction. They recognized positions. They knew when something was wrong. They also used plants, but their effects ranged from helpful to ineffective to dangerous. Some brought on contractions, others could cause harm. The knowledge was real and uneven. After the baby came the second labor, the placenta. A retained placenta could kill the mother. Experienced attendants knew to watch for it. Delayed cutting appears in a range of traditional practices, although its prehistoric history is unknown. Modern medicine has now measured benefits that some older practices may have achieved without knowing the physiology. That's rediscovery in reverse. The practice came first, the science caught up. Where the group could afford it, relatives reduced the new mother's workload. They brought food, helped her nurse, cared for her older children. In harsher conditions, recovery may have been brief and incomplete. The support was real, and it was a luxury that depended on how much the group had. And when childbirth went wrong, the limits of ancient knowledge became brutally clear. Sometimes the baby survived, sometimes the mother survived, sometimes neither did. The killers: hemorrhage, bleeding out after the placenta, infection, Without antibiotics, obstructed labor, the baby stuck for hours, even days. Breech presentation, cord compression, and other complications. These are not ancient myths. They are real, and they still happen. So how many women actually died? This is where the internet gets sloppy. You've heard 1 in 3 women died in childbirth. Check that against the scale. Speculative. In some reconstructed pre-industrial European populations, maternal death averaged about 1.2% per birth. But here's the number that matters. For women who experienced repeated pregnancies, the lifetime risk was much greater, roughly 1 in 18. That's the danger made real. Not one birth, but every birth, again and again. And the babies? This is the part that breaks the romantic version. In many pre-industrial populations, a large proportion of children died before age 5. For the Paleolithic, precise percentages remain uncertain. Not because parents didn't care, because no germ theory, no antibiotics, no vaccines. What is remarkable is how families continued to raise surviving children under such severe conditions. One more honest note, the part history barely records. Without modern medicine, a woman couldn't always tell a late miscarriage from a birth, or bleeding from an infection, or a normal labor from a dying one. That fear was ancient. It shaped everything, and like so much of women's experience, it was rarely written down. So we know what they faced. Now the question that sits underneath all of it, why did human birth become so difficult in the first place? The classic answer is elegant. It's in every textbook. It's also being rewritten. Every video gives the same tidy answer. The obstetrical dilemma. 3 things collided. Our brains got bigger, so babies needed bigger heads. We started walking upright, which reshaped the pelvis. The birth canal narrowed. The head got bigger. Something had to give. So the story goes, give birth early before the head outgrows the canal. That's why a newborn horse stands within hours. A baby chimp grips its mother from the first minute. A human baby can't hold up its own head. Born with a brain about a quarter of its adult size, a chimp is born at around 40%. Most human brain growth and development happens after birth, while you are completely defenseless. That's the deal, the story says. Big brain, helpless baby. It's an elegant story. There's just one problem. Modern science has been pulling it apart, not disproving it, complicating it. The truth is messier and more interesting. Let's check the pillars. Documented, plausible, speculative, myth. The story says humans give birth early, prematurely, to escape the birth canal. Documented fact, human pregnancy is not unusually short for a primate of our size. Around 40 weeks. Comparable to gorillas, similar to our closest relatives. The born early to escape idea is being revised. The data is more complicated than the story. The story says the pelvis couldn't get wider because it would ruin walking. For decades, nobody actually tested it. Then researchers did, treadmill studies measuring oxygen use. Result, wider hips do not appear to impose the enormous walking penalty the old story predicted. That test weakened one of the classic assumptions. Not destroyed it, weakened it. The story says humans alone have the head to pelvis problem, but tight fetal pelvic fits are not exclusive to humans. Other primates can face them too. The human rotational route remains distinctive, but the problem itself isn't ours alone. The unique dilemma isn't as unique as advertised. So what else could explain the timing? Researchers propose the eggs hypothesis, energetics of gestation and growth. As pregnancy advances, maternal energy expenditure rises toward what may be a sustainable metabolic ceiling. Labor may begin when continued growth becomes increasingly costly. A hypothesis, not settled fact. And the most honest summary, major reviews say the dilemma should be expanded, not declared dead. Pelvic floor function, locomotion, metabolism, thermoregulation, nutrition, fetal growth, all may contribute. There isn't one tidy cause. There's a stack of interacting constraints. And that's the scientific truth. Childbirth is hard for many reasons at once. So why didn't evolution fix it? Because every possible change carried other costs. For the pelvis, the pelvic floor, the mother, or the growing baby. Evolution didn't produce a perfect solution. It produced a workable compromise. And what made it survivable wasn't a perfect body. It was the people around her, Now, the twist that changes the whole story: birth didn't just make women vulnerable, it made humans social. A helpless infant and a recovering mother meant the group had to work together. Anthropologists call it cooperative breeding. It may be why we're here at all. Label: plausible hypothesis. Among the Ife foragers of the Congo, researchers watched a stunning thing. A single infant was held by 14 different people in 8 hours. The mother held the baby less than half the time. The rest, fathers, grandmothers, siblings, aunts, neighbors, unrelated women. The baby was rarely without contact. Shared care distributed the demands of feeding, caring, and protection. And the fathers? Among the AK of Central Africa, anthropologist Barry Hewlett found fathers stayed within arm's reach of their infants nearly half the day. Their behavior shows that intensive paternal care is not merely a recent Western invention. The baby was held, the load was shared. And then the grandmothers. This is the part nobody expects. Kristen Hawkes studied the Hadza of Tanzania. Postmenopausal women were among the hardest working foragers in the group. Their food contributions may have supported daughters and grandchildren, potentially allowing shorter birth intervals. The grandmother hypothesis proposes that long post-reproductive lives could carry an evolutionary advantage. Menopause may not be a breakdown, it may be a strategy. Human babies remained dependent long after birth. They had to be carried, fed, and protected for years. Soft carriers may have been one of humanity's most important invisible technologies, but they rarely survive archaeologically. Extended breastfeeding often delayed the return of ovulation and increased the interval between births. And from their earliest months, human infants were unusually responsive to faces, voices, and attention. The baby needed the village and was equipped to keep that village close. None of this was written down. It was passed from woman to woman, demonstration, apprenticeship, memory. For most of human history, birth knowledge lived in the minds of attendants. And in the last few centuries, much of it was pushed aside. This is where the story stops being ancient. This is the loss. As male physicians and surgeons gained authority, traditional midwives faced regulation, exclusion, and loss of status. The transition was uneven. Some midwives remained central, others were pushed aside. And for a while, the new way was deadlier than the old, because doctors who refused to wash their hands carried infection from autopsy to delivery room. Puerperal fever, childbed fever, tore through maternity wards. During the worst outbreaks, mortality in some maternity wards approached 1 mother in 3. A Hungarian doctor, Ignác Semmelweis, proved hand-washing saved lives. The medical establishment ignored him. This wasn't progress arriving. It was a detour through arrogance. So let's be clear about what we owe the modern era. Vaccines, clean water, antibiotics, blood transfusions, C-sections for when it goes wrong. Every woman who writes, "My body was not designed for childbirth, and I survived because of medicine," is telling the truth. Modern care saved them. We are not romanticizing the past. We are asking, what did the past get right that we've lost? But here's the part nobody expects. Modern parents are exhausted, lonely, burnt out, and they blame themselves. One comment: "You were never meant to raise a child alone," is the most validating and damning sentence I've ever heard. We didn't break. Parenting, we broke the village. For much of human history, childcare was distributed across relatives and community members far more than it is in many households today. Reading this at 3 a.m. with a screaming baby and nobody coming, one woman wrote, "Evolution didn't prepare me for this loneliness." She's right. It didn't. For most of human history, mothers were less likely to face every demand of infant care entirely alone. The exhaustion and isolation modern parents feel isn't weakness, it's a mismatch, body and world. So, back to her. One plausible version looks like this. Our cave woman is in labor, in the firelight. Perhaps she squats. Perhaps an older woman's hands catch the baby. Her sister wipes her forehead. Her mother holds her back. The baby rotates. It emerges. Someone clears its airway. Someone waits for the cord to stop pulsing. We can't prove the details. But the pattern, support, not solitude, is the best reading of the evidence. So how did ancient women survive childbirth without hospitals? First, birth is genuinely dangerous. A tight fit, energy costs, infection, hemorrhage. We label all of it. Second, the tidy story of why is being rewritten. We showed you the debate. That's the honest version. Third, and this is the answer, she survived because when she needed hands, there were hands. The attendants, the grandmother, the village. That raised her chances. It did not make childbirth safe. Many still died despite everything. The community improved the odds. That's not the same as winning. History preserved the kings. It preserved the wars. It preserved the doctors who washed their hands too late. It did not preserve the women who saved humanity one birth at a time. But their knowledge didn't disappear. It's in every woman who catches another woman when she falls. It's in every grandmother who shows up. In every hand that reaches down to a laboring mother. Humanity survived childbirth tens of billions of times for one simple reason. Someone was there. A 2-second silence and fade to black. Subscribe for more stories about the mismatch between your ancient body and your modern world. If childbirth is the moment the body is pushed to its limit, what happens when the mind breaks? Next time on The Old Human, what ancient humans did with the mentally ill, the outcast, the one who saw things. Because the same village that caught a laboring woman sometimes pushed another one out into the cold. The fire is still burning. This is The Old Human.